Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another true crime episode here on my YouTube channel. As you guys can tell by the title of today's video, today we are talking about the unsolved disappearance of 20-year-old Vanessa Guillen. Before we jump into today's case, I do want to thank the sponsor for this video, and that is Sunbasket. If you guys are unfamiliar with what Sunbasket is, Sunbasket is a food delivery service that delivers fresh, healthy, and delicious meals straight to your front door. Sunbasket has choices for all sorts of dietary preferences like paleo, gluten-free, vegetarian, and more, so there is something for everyone to enjoy with Sunbasket. Sunbasket makes making meals incredibly convenient and easy because everything is already pre-proportioned and ready to be prepped and cooked. Each week, Sunbasket offers a wide range of recipes that you can choose from, including their roasted salmon with miso glazed eggplant, black bean tostadas diablo with cabbage slaw and guacamole, as well as their hoisin steak strip lettuce cups with pickled daikon and carrots. I know personally I'm really excited to try their butter chicken with basmati rice pilaf. And what's really cool about Sunbasket is it's super customizable. You can double up on recipes if you want, and you can even skip a week if that's what works best for you. And just so you guys are aware, Sunbasket facilities have the highest level of food and employee safety, and they are reinforcing strict operating procedures and increasing sanitization frequency in their distribution centers in order to keep you and your family safe. So I'm going to have all the information for Sunbasket linked in the description box below for you to go check out. And with that being said, let's just jump right on into today's case. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, today we are talking about the unsolved disappearance of 20-year-old Vanessa Guillen. So this is a fairly new case, and you guys were very adamant. You flooded my DMs and my inbox talking about this case, and for very good reason, because the events leading up to Vanessa's disappearance and following have been nothing short of absolutely bizarre. Now, this case is actually unlike any that I have ever covered before, because in this case I have had the privilege to speak to some of Vanessa's family members, so I just want to give a big thank you to them at the beginning of this video. Vanessa is a 20-year-old Hispanic woman who went missing on April 22nd, 2020 from Fort Hood, Texas. Vanessa was last seen wearing a black shirt, light purple leggings, and black Nike shoes. A physical description of Vanessa is that she has light brown eyes, dark brown hair, stands at about 5 feet 2 inches tall, and she has a beauty mark on the left side of her chin. Vanessa also has 3 tattoos on her left arm. One of her tattoos is a cross with a flower on it. She has another one of a mountain on her upper left shoulder, and lastly she has another tattoo of another flower on her left arm as well. There is currently a $15,000 reward out to the public for anyone who can offer any information that could lead to Vanessa's whereabouts. Vanessa was born on September 30th, 1999 to her mother Gloria Guillen, and Vanessa also has an older sister named Myra. Vanessa has been described by her family as someone who is extremely intelligent. She always kept up with her schoolwork. She got really great grades throughout school. She's also described as someone who loves to be physically active. Prior to her disappearance, she went on runs almost every single day, and she also loved playing soccer. Vanessa is also someone who volunteers for her community and helps out philanthropically when she can. And overall, personality-wise, Vanessa is described as someone who's very loving and caring. She's an amazing sister and an amazing friend. She always has a smile on her face. And she's also described as someone who is incredibly supportive. She is the person that you would have in your corner at all times. Vanessa also has a boyfriend. Her boyfriend's name is Juan Cruz, and the two of them have a really great relationship. So Vanessa grew up in Houston, Texas, and she actually graduated high school at the top 15% of her class. Like I said earlier, she's extremely intelligent, and she also graduated as a varsity soccer player. Now, soon after graduating high school, Vanessa decided that she wanted to join the US Army, and this was not some off-the-whim decision. She had a set goal of joining the Army, and that is exactly what she ended up doing. Vanessa was originally stationed in South Carolina as well as Virginia before being transferred to the Fort Hood base in Texas. And when Vanessa initially transferred to the Fort Hood base, this seemed like a great option because Vanessa's family was in Texas. She would be able to be closer to her relatives, and it seemed like everything was really falling into place. And when Vanessa initially joined the Army, she had an amazing experience. She was determined, she was motivated, she was really enjoying her time. However, when she was transferred to the Fort Hood base, it didn't take long for things to change. So let's jump to Wednesday, April 29th, 22nd, 2020. So this day started out like any normal day for Vanessa. She woke up, she spoke to her boyfriend, and she headed off to work on the Fort Hood Army base. Now around noon on this day, Myra, Vanessa's sister, had been texting Vanessa, but she noticed that her text messages weren't going through. She also began calling Vanessa's phone and noticed that Vanessa's phone just went straight to voicemail each time. Now it was very unlikely for Vanessa to not be in any communication with her family or her friends. She was typically always talking to her boyfriend or to her sister or to her mom. She was always in communication with someone. So after a couple hours had passed and Myra still hadn't heard from Vanessa, Myra decided to take matters into her own hands, and she actually ended up calling Vanessa's staff sergeant on the base at about 8:00 p.m. on April 22nd. Now this staff sergeant is responsible for attendance. So because this staff sergeant is in charge of attendance, that is why Myra reached out. And when Myra got a hold of this staff sergeant, they informed Myra that the last time anyone had seen Vanessa was around lunchtime, but Vanessa was expected to be back by the latest 10:00 p.m. because that was the time for check-in, and so she was expected to be back by that time. But Vanessa never ended up showing up for check-in that night. Now, after learning that Vanessa never showed up for her check-in, it did not take long whatsoever for Vanessa's family to spring into action and start creating Facebook groups and posting all over social media and passing out flyers to the public, and maybe either spark a memory of them seeing Vanessa somewhere, or it would just bring them closer to finding out where Vanessa was. So let's back up to the early afternoon of April 22nd. So Vanessa was last seen at 1:00 p.m. at the Regimental Engineer Squadron Headquarters that is located on the Fort Hood Army base. So Vanessa was last seen in the parking lot of this building, and to this day, no one has seen or heard from her since. Now, what's interesting is that when the base was initially notified that Vanessa was missing, they actually discovered her room key, her ID card, her car keys, and Vanessa's wallet in the armory room, which from my understanding is the room where they keep all of the weapons, and this was the room that Vanessa was working in on April 22nd. The only thing that has not been discovered of Vanessa's to this day is Vanessa's cell phone. Her car has been located on the Fort Hood base. Now, following Vanessa's disappearance, authorities had wondered if it was possible that Vanessa left on her own free will, or if she ran away. Now, just like a lot of cases that we've seen, Vanessa's family knew that there was absolutely no way that she would run away. She had A, nothing to run away from, and B, she was planning for the future. Before her disappearance, she had been talking to her sister about buying a new car. She talked to her family all the time. She talked to her boyfriend all the time. Nothing in her behavior indicated that she was planning on running away or planning on not communicating with her family. Even though Vanessa's family was aware that Vanessa did not run away, this was not something that she would have done. Her family did come forward and say that Vanessa's behavior since transferring to the Fort Hood base did change a little bit. After transferring to Fort Hood, Vanessa wasn't her happy and joyful self. There was clearly something bothering her, and Myra was actually able to go back to text messages that her and Vanessa had, and Vanessa disclosed to Myra that she didn't like Fort Hood and she didn't like being there, and that hopefully one day she would be able to open up about what was bothering her. So there's a big piece of this case that we have to discuss for a moment. So I am not entirely sure what that thing that Vanessa said was bothering her was. However, there is a big piece of this case that we have to discuss that could be exactly what Vanessa was talking about. So following Vanessa's disappearance, Gloria, Vanessa's mother, came forward to talk about a phone call. Gloria said that on this phone call that she and Vanessa had, Vanessa disclosed to her mother that she was being sexually harassed by one of the sergeants on her base. Now, obviously, as any mother would be, when Gloria heard these incidents, she was absolutely infuriated and really worried for Vanessa, and she told Vanessa that she should come forward and report what happened to her. But Vanessa told her mom that this was not the first time that a sergeant had done something like this, and that when other people come forward, no one believes them. Now, Vanessa didn't give her mom the name of the sergeant that she claims was doing these things to her, and her reason for not doing this was because she didn't want to put herself or her family in any danger. And for those exact same reasons, she also asked for her mother not to get involved in the situation as well. So with this new piece of information, it really does bring an entirely new element into this case. Vanessa was allegedly dealing with a superior figure who was sexually harassing her prior to her disappearance. And just to give you a timeline, that phone call that happened with Vanessa's mother happened about 3 weeks before Vanessa went missing. So I want to talk about the Fort Hood Army base for a minute. So Fort Hood is actually one of the largest military bases in the entire world. This base covers about 215,000 acres. This base covers over 250,000 acres and has over 40,000 soldiers. And what's important to note is that Vanessa is not the only person who has ever gone missing from the Fort Hood Army base. Most recently, back in August of 2019, 23-year-old Gregory Weddle Morales disappeared from the Fort Hood base and has never been seen or heard from since. Like I said, he went missing in August of 2019, August 19th to be exact, and he was scheduled to be processed out of the Army in September of 2019, so just a month following his disappearance. From the research that I was able to do, and you guys can fill me in if you are more familiar with this subject, the Fort Hood Army base has been known to have some shady and sketchy business going on in it. So in terms of Vanessa's disappearance and the result of the coronavirus, Vanessa's family, at least as far as I am aware now, things might have changed, but in the beginning of the investigation at least, Vanessa's family was not allowed on the Fort Hood base to search for Vanessa. The Fort Hood base has said that they assigned 500 soldiers to walk on foot and search all throughout the base to look for Vanessa. However, they have been unsuccessful in finding anything that leads to where her whereabouts are. I can't even imagine that feeling of not being allowed to go where your family member has gone missing and not being able to search for yourself and for your own peace of mind and for your own sanity to be able to walk in and really scour the entire area. So since we're talking about the coronavirus, I do think that it's important to mention the protocols and regulations that were put in place. So Vanessa went missing on April 22nd, 2020, and that was in the height of the coronavirus. And there were multiple different protocols placed on the Fort Hood base due to this. One of those being that Fort Hood typically has 4 open gates, so 4 gates for entry and exit. However, due to the coronavirus, 3 of those gates had been shut down, so there was only 1 gate to go in and out of. Along with that, instead of manually checking ID cards like they typically would, ID cards ran through an automated ID scanner. There were also no visitors allowed on the base, and there was a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. placed every single day. Now, authorities have not come forward and stated what they believe happened to Vanessa yet. They haven't come forward to the public and stated any theories on what they believe happened. However, in the beginning of the investigation, authorities really focused all of their energy on the inside of the Fort Hood base. All of the searches happened inside of the base, which really led Vanessa's family to believe that authorities could think that Vanessa was still somewhere on that base. Along with this, Vanessa's family also held their own search party where 60 of Vanessa's family members and friends gathered together on May 30th, which was less than 2 weeks ago at this point, and they gathered at Miller Springs Park in Temple, Texas. And Vanessa's sister said the reason that they chose to search in this area was because this was a big area that they wanted to be able to cross off their list on the map, and that this was a huge area that they needed to search. However, unfortunately, despite their search efforts, they did not find anything that could lead them to where Vanessa could be. So going along with the sexual harassment allegations that Vanessa made against a sergeant on the base, I want to discuss a conversation that Gloria, Vanessa's mother, said that she had with an anonymous sergeant who reached out to her. Now, according to Gloria, she said that this sergeant reached out to her and said that they had to keep their name anonymous because they would be putting themselves at risk of death if they disclosed their identity. Gloria said that this sergeant told her that Vanessa was kidnapped on the Fort Hood base and that she is being kept there and traveling through underground tunnels throughout the base. And Gloria said that this sergeant also said that Vanessa is not the only one in them. Gloria is currently in the process of trying to find a lawyer to help with these allegations. Now, I also want to mention, because this was a question that crossed my mind as well when researching this case and after hearing that Vanessa was last seen in a parking lot, a big question that I had in my mind were there any security cameras at all? Were there any security cameras on the base that could possibly show what happened to Vanessa on April 22nd? This was a big question that I had in my mind when reading through and researching, and I'm sure it's a question that you might have when you're watching this. However, after continuing to research, I discovered that there actually isn't really any surveillance cameras on the Fort Hood base, which is mind mind-blowing to me. I've heard some people say that they might have red light cameras. However, as far as surveillance cameras go, there really aren't any lined up. And with a base as big as Fort Hood, it makes me really wonder why there aren't any security cameras on this base. So again, you guys can let me know about your thoughts on that in the comments below as well. So you guys, as far as facts go in this case, that's really all we have. What we know is that Vanessa went missing in the early afternoon hours of April 22nd, and she was last seen around 1:00 p.m. in a parking lot on the base. The fact that Vanessa's wallet, ID card, room key, and car keys were found in the room that she was working in, as well as her car being discovered, it really makes me believe that Vanessa was planning to return back to that room. Wherever Vanessa was going, she was planning on coming back. You don't just leave your most important belongings, especially her wallet. The fact that she left her wallet there really makes me think that she was planning on returning back to that room and wasn't planning to walk out and just never be seen again. So obviously you can imagine, with as little factual information as there is on this case, it has been extremely frustrating and aggravating and excruciating for Vanessa's family, who after about a month and a half of her missing really have no answers as to what is going on. Personally, I think that the fact that Vanessa disclosed to her mother that she was being sexually harassed by a sergeant on the base is obviously a huge red flag. And Vanessa's family has come forward and said that they believe that there are other soldiers on the base who are familiar with who Vanessa was referring to, and also that there are other people who are experiencing or have experienced this same harassment as well, and they don't want to come forward because they don't want to put themselves at risk. So with that being said, let's talk about some theories. First theory that we have on this case is that Vanessa was kidnapped on the Fort Hood base and is still being kept somewhere on the base. Vanessa's sister has said that Vanessa is extremely loyal to the chain of command in the US Army. So if someone were to take her, if someone were to approach her and tell her to come with them, it would most likely be someone that she felt she couldn't say no to, like a superior figure. Now this theory could possibly tie in to the anonymous sergeant who disclosed to Gloria that Vanessa was being held in these underground tunnels on the base. Now how I see this is that if there are some corrupt underground tunnels going on underneath the base, there has to be a group of people who are orchestrating this entire thing, because there's no way that only one person is responsible for these underground tunnels and what happens in between them. This is a group effort, and because of that, that means that there are multiple people who are aware of what's going on. And because of that, you would only hope that one of them would have the decency to come forward and expose what is happening. Now the second theory that we have here is that Vanessa was kidnapped and placed into a cult. Now there have been some allegations regarding a church, and this church is called the Assembly of Prayer. There are multiple different names for this church. This church is located in multiple different areas. However, the one that we are going to be focusing on is an Assembly of Prayer church located in Killeen, Texas, and it is about a 15-minute drive from the Fort Hood base. Now this church has been accused countless times of being a cult. It's been accused of recruiting young girls and brainwashing them and manipulating them. As far as if it's a sex trafficking cult or if there's any sex trafficking or anything of that nature that happens inside of the church, that I'm not aware of. I wasn't able to find anything on that. However, what I was able to find was the countless reports of people saying that this church is an extremely manipulative, brainwashing place. There have been soldiers who live on the Fort Hood Army base who have reported seeing multiple vans driving around the base at night and during the day trying to recruit people to join their church. There have been reports of people saying that these recruiters are extremely aggressive, and they'll go as far as waiting at your house and waiting on your doorstep and waiting for you to try to recruit you and lure you in. And when I googled this church and looked on Facebook and looked at other websites and tried to really get an understanding as to what the general consensus of this church is, I ended up coming across a report by someone who literally just posted this a couple days ago. And I'm going to look over here to read the quote directly to you. It says, quote, "There are people riding around day and late night trying to recruit for church in a silver van. Do not fall for it. 2 men and 1 lady kept trying to get my attention about church, asking me to follow them to a late gathering. They say that they are from Assembly of Prayer. 1 man would get out of the van, walking around the whole area looking for women. My complex and police have been notified." Now, in doing my research, I also came across a post that someone had posted in the Fort Hood Army Wives group. And again, I just need to make this extremely clear. this is just very much speculation. This has not been confirmed yet. However, someone posted in the Fort Hood Army Wives group that their husband had received a text message saying that Vanessa had been abducted by 2 Latina women who were involved in the Assembly of Prayer church. Like I said, there are multiple churches like this located throughout the country. They're spread all over. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Vanessa was taken to this one church and she's there and police just need to go there and find her. There's multiple churches located throughout the entire country. And because this is a theory that, based off of my research, a lot of people believe that Vanessa was abducted by people who took her to this Assembly of Prayer church and have completely brainwashed her and manipulated her and are either keeping her somewhere in Texas or have transferred her to a different church somewhere else across the country. So because this is such a well-known theory, I'm sure this is something that authorities have been and are looking into. And personally, I would be interested to see if there was any connection between the sergeant who was accused of sexually harassing Vanessa and this Assembly of Prayer church. Now, the third theory we have is that Vanessa decided to run away. Personally, I don't like to input my own individual feelings because I like you guys to have those on your own, but I'm just gonna say this one loud and clear. I do not think that Vanessa ran away. I think that something happened to her. I think that someone is responsible for what happened to Vanessa, and I still do think that Vanessa is alive. You have to remember, her car was found on the Fort Hood base parking lot. If she wanted to run away, if she wanted to get out, she would have had to have someone accompany her in doing so. She would have had to have someone else's car come pick her up. She would have had to meet up with someone. There would have been multiple steps that had to be taken, and most likely she wouldn't have acted alone. So I'm very interested to see in the comments below what you guys think of all of this. I also want to mention that there is a GoFundMe page that Vanessa's sister has set up, and I'm going to leave it in the description box below because Vanessa's sister is in the process of hiring a private investigator. And so if you are able to help any, I will leave the GoFundMe link in the description box below. I also will have the numbers to multiple different resources that you can call if you have any information regarding Vanessa's disappearance. And before we close out this video, I want to say this is a case, we always say it, we say it all the time, this is a case where someone knows something. And if you are that someone who knows something, and if you are worried about coming forward, whether that's you know what the name of the sergeant is, whether that's you have also experienced the same or similar harassment, whether that's you know where Vanessa is, whether that's you've seen Vanessa, whatever the circumstance may be, and whatever the reason is that you are afraid to come forward, there are anonymous tip lines that you can call where your identity will remain anonymous. No one will ever have to know that you said anything. You can come forward and be anonymous and give a tip that could potentially solve this case and bring Vanessa home to her family. Vanessa and her family deserve justice, so I really hope that you guys share this video, keep talking about Vanessa's case, get her face out there in order to spread the word on this. With that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another true crime episode here on my YouTube channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I make videos 3 days a week, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. You should subscribe and join the family. I will be back in a couple days with a brand new video, and I will see you then. Bye, guys.